Hello, everybody. It is Rocco, your boy, coming at you again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this video, we're talking about we're gonna do this as I guess it'd be a general class, right? I know we're not really doing the class and the professor bit, but we are doing an in-depth look at the General's Handbook. We're looking to go to war in Antor, the Bitter Land, whichever way you want to say it. It's a made-up fantasy word. I don't know the way to say it right. Because I did promise. I've been busy. I've had a lot of stuff. The last video I said we'd do this. Here we are. All right. So going in here, my floating head. I think I got my green screen right too. So here we go. Our special rule here is one with the land. Wizard heroes with a wounds characteristic of 9 or less that are not unique gain the Antorian locus keyword. Looking for an AL is the abbreviation. What that means, at the start of the battle round, after priority is determined, if you're going second and you pick a friendly hero that is a locus, they can attempt to cast an extra spell and attempt an extra unbind, or receive a command point if they are not an Andorian locus. So that's big. That's our new keyword to key everything off of. All right, we're we're involved in this primal magic thing. At the start of each hero phase, both players roll a dice. So at the start of the hero phase, meaning both, because each player gets one. Each player rolls a dice. On a 4-up, you receive a primal magic dice. If any player attempts to cast or unbind a spell, or take care of an endless spell, you can roll one of your primal dice and add that to the total casting number. That counts as a modifier. We've had some FAQs and things to stop some crazy combos, which is what my last video was, and I'm kind of glad they got rid of that. It was for my wizard, but it's all right. We want a fairer game here. If you can keep choosing to roll an additional dice one at a time until you suffer what's called a primal miscast, and there's no more primal magic dice to be rolled, and or you run out of dice to roll. So if you re-roll the casting, unbinding, or dispelling, you must use that before you try these primal dice out. If you can't use primal dice to supplement the roll. If you choose an ability to reroll a casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll, you cannot choose the primal dice supplement that roll. So what that means is if you don't like the roll you got in with primal dice, you can't just re-roll everything. Alright. That's very important. And at the end of each battle round, any dice that have not been used are lost. You'll generate more, hopefully, eventually. So here's the thing. When it's rolled as part of a casting value, if any of the dice you have are a double one, you suffer a primal miscast. Your hero's head blows up. They take D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. And then all units within 3 inches of the caster will suffer D3 mortal wounds as well. And you cannot cast any more spells. So it's a lot, on average, will suffer 5 mortal wounds and your wizard will be dead. Because a lot of this is sent at those 5 wound support hero wizards. And this is a cool balancing mechanic, right? Because you can still see, do you want to gamble? You rolled 1-1, but what are the chances you roll another 1, right? If you say that out loud, all the time. All the time, that next dice, like, I already have a 1, it's okay, you'll roll a 1, don't do it. If you use primal dice and you get a double 6 throughout rolling all these dice, that spell is considered successfully cast. You cannot unbind it. Because it is successfully cast, you can't then add another primal dice after the fact to try to boost your numbers up. Not worth it. Don't do it. In addition, the caster cannot attempt to cast any more spells in that phase, and both players receive an extra primal magic dice. So what does that mean with this supercast? That means that one wizard is so overtaken by the magic, they're just focused on that one spell, and it generates a new magical flux, so each player gets an extra primal dice for the next round of spell casting, which is really freaking cool. Here's Nullstone adornments, because they're like, listen, we know some armies do not have wizards, so here's how you get to play this general's handbook, right? It gives you an ability to, you get one for free, which is great. You can take like a warlord battalion to try to get an extra one of these, and they give you a bonus as long as you don't have wizards in your army. And you cannot cast spells in the ability same manner as a wizard. So like if you just have a bunch of rune lords that can dispel stuff, you're fine. If they're still in the city's book, they should be. We'll see. So we have Nullstone adornments. This is the hand-carved Nullstone icon. The bearer can attempt to unbind one spell or attempt to dispel one endless spell in the enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. And each time the bearer successfully unbinds a spell or dispels an endless spell, you can attempt to do it one more time. And it says each time the bearer does it, so this stacks indefinitely. And we can use primal dice with this to stop spells from going off, because it's that whole in the same manner as a wizard modifier there. So if for some reason I didn't want to run wizards in my Cities of Sigmar army, even with the new book coming out, which the wizards look cool, if you have, say, this on a rune lord or a hero in your army that gives you pluses to get rid of spells, or if you're Khorne and you can do stuff to screw with people, this is an amazing artifact. It's also separate from regular artifacts, I guess. I think it's supposed to be an artifact. I think it's supposed to be an artifact. I've seen people saying it's a unique enhancement, it's different, but I think this isn't, because you get one in addition to your free artifact. But I don't think a hero with an artifact can carry this too. We need to go and check the FAQ on that. Alright. Next we have the Pouch of Nulldust. Once per battle, at the start of the hero phase, you can say the bearer will use their pouch. If you do so, until the end of that phase, unmodified casting rolls that are a double 1, 2, or double 3 are treated as primal, or treated as miscasts, or if you use a primal dice, it counts as a primal miscast. In addition, roll a dice for each endless spell on the battlefield. On a 5-up, that spell just goes away. It's once per battle, but this is extremely strong. If your opponent has a bunch of wizards, this is a very fun way to just kill them off. But that's just beginning and end of that statement. Like, if it's, like, you're going against Lumineth Realm Lords, you're like, cool, roll a double 1 or double 2 or double 3. It's not likely to happen. But in an army that has, I don't know, over 3 wizards, you probably get in one of them if they're using primal dice, right? Because then you're like, okay, the chances of them rolling 3 or 4 dice on a spell, there's a good chance you're going to get a double 1, a double 2, or a double 3. And if it's Lumineth, let's say, as an example here, and each unit they bring is, it's like they're archers, they're spearmen, they're cavalry, they've got the foot hero wizards, you're going to get somebody, and then they're going to pop. And it's going to be beautiful. And then, even into Tzeentch, this is like a really good thing. If they have like a Lord of Change that can change the dice around for their casting values, like, oh cool, I rolled a 6 and a 1, I'll bring the 1 to a 6. That'll be rough, but if they have a bunch of foot casters, this is a good option. And finally, we have the Polished Nullstone Pebble. When this unit is picked as the target of a spell or the abilities of an endless spell, you can roll a dice. On a 4+, the caster must pick another unit within 3 inches and within range of that spell, or endless spell's abilities to be the target. If, when picking another unit, there are no other units within 3 inches of this unit, the person holding this, and within range, ignore the spell effects. So you get a 4-up pass the damage off to somebody else. If you are, say, a Fire Slayer's hero, or you've got someone that's like a real combat beat stick kind of person, you want them to live long enough, you pop this pebble on them, you have a 4-up spell ignore. Just make sure you keep them outside of 3 friendly units, and it's just pass it off to any unit. Just pick another unit within 3 inches. So you can, if you roll the 4-up, you could pass off a damage dealing spell from your really cool hero. Like, let's say the Achillean King, right? That's a target for this kind of stuff. Like, this is an argument for some armies where you have like a named hero with a spell ignore, or you have the generic version, like in Deepkin, that doesn't, and you can pass it off to an enemy unit. Or if you have like a unit bodyguarding them, like something like, say, Aether Wings, something cheap, something, you've got cultists in Slaves to Darkness. You've got anything in Nurgle. Anything in Nurgle to pass this off on to. What do you care? You've got a 5-up ward, right? But it's not going on your hero. It can go on your Plague Bearers, and you're fine. This, again, if you're not taking wizards, this is a really good way to protect a hero you need to deliver into the enemy to earn their points back, where they have to get into the fight. It's not a, even as a support piece for that matter, it's just good, right? Like, I have a hero out in the back, they have an aura to buff, I don't know, artillery. You're the new Ossiarch Bone Reaper hero, right? That buffs the catapults. Well, you couldn't take this because that guy's a wizard, so never mind. But, again, I'll go to my cities example or my Deepkin example. Let's go with my Deepkin example. Putting a spell ignore on a beatstick hero such as the Achillean King, who gets its power from its command trait, is huge. The command trait being for each enemy unit that it's near at their fight first round, they get extra attack. So that's cool. The artifact was always just whatever little flavor you wanted to put onto it. This is a really good artifact. These are very good. I like them a lot. I really like the Nullstone icon, even for like Caradron Overlords, to just keep popping this bad boy off. Really gives you a chance in the game. Next, we have the magic of the realm here, the Realm Sphere magic, the lore of Primal Frost, which is only the Andorian Locust units, wizards of 9 wounds or less, where we have Hoarfrost, the spell that everyone's loving, which is you can get it off on an 8, pick a friendly unit within 12 inches, wholly within 12 inches, because it's wholly within range there. Pick one of their melee profiles and roll a d3. Change the to hit, the to wound, or Ren characteristic of that melee weapon. Because again, it's like, cool. Are they armed with like a special weapon, or is it just like the regular swords the unit has? Like, as an example, Stormcast have a unit called Sequitors, where they have 2 weapon profiles. One is a Great Mace that does 2 damage, or that it's like a limited amount in the unit, or the rank and file that has a hammer or sword and a shield. You get like a melee weapon and a shield, or a 2-handed great weapon. You pick one of those, and then you roll the dice. You can change their to hit characteristic, the to wound characteristic, or the rend based on what you roll. And if you roll a 1, that doesn't matter. The lowest you can get like a hit or to wound is a 2-up. So if your unit normally hits on a 4, and you roll low and get a 2 on the dice, you can give them a 2 to hit or a 2 to wound. If your unit doesn't have rend, right, and you roll hot, and you get the 3, you could then put -3 rend on a no rend weapon that you have a bunch of attacks on, because you're like ghouls from Flesh Eater Courts, where they gave you like 3 or 4 attacks per model because you don't have rend, then all of a sudden hordes of ghouls are going to be a problem. You get the idea with this. It's a very good spell. There's a reason it goes off on an 8. And this will be a very hotly contested spell where you will need to have bonuses to cast, plus probably throw a primal dice or two onto there to make sure it goes off. And then we have Rupture. Goes off on a 10, which is huge. Range 18. It successfully cast one predatory spell or incarnate wholly within range. Uh, the target immediately becomes wild and cannot be picked to be controlled or bonded for the rest of the battle. So the whole point of this is, let's say your opponent's like, yeah, man, I'm rock. You remember when the Ghur incarnates were running every. It was horrible. I remember there was a build that had like 3 Gatebreaker Mega Gargants, the Incarnate, and it would just. They changed the points so stuff like that couldn't happen, but now we have a spell. It goes off on a 10, so it's hard to do. But you're probably throwing 3 dice at the problem, so math says we should get it. If the start of your opponent's turn, you've got like something that can actually teleport up from one of your spells, and then you cast this on there, the incarnate goes wild, so then it just starts off attacking your opponent's army. That's freaking beautiful. It's very hard to do, but we have the tools with these primal dice to do it. So again, as long as you're rolling average, you probably get like a 3, a 4, and a 3 on 3 dice. That's a 10. Assuming you're doing this with a hero that has a +1 to do it, because everyone's going to be trying to find those combos in this book, for this General's Handbook. That's good. That's really freaking good. Ignore my antivirus pop up there. Next, we have the Merciless Blizzard. This goes off on a 12-inch range. This is the hardest spell to get off. But what you do is, once it's successfully cast, pick an enemy unit in range and visible to the caster within 12. That unit suffers 4d3 mortal wounds. But when you roll those 4 dice, if you roll a 1, the caster also suffers 1d3 mortal wounds for each 1 you roll. So I'll roll 4 dice. If I get 4 6s, that's 24 mortals. Life's looking really freaking good. Yeah, people that can cast this are going to need some good primal dice. You're going to need to build into probably taking some extra primal dice. We'll get into that in a second. I think that's actually the next page with the battalions. If you have some kind of a faction for a bonus to cast, I'm thinking, again, Lumineth with Zytrek, my favorite Lumineth sub-faction. I'm thinking the Warsong Revenant with the +1 to cast with near the Awakened Wildwood. I'm thinking along those lines. But another good way to do this is, if you're Lumineth, they have the, I want to keep calling the Lore Seeker, you know, that forward deploying high elf Jedi looking kind of character there that I love so much, and usually it on my thumbnails is like getting eaten by something. This is a really good delivery system from this. I blame Martin Orlando for this idea, because he's right. I talked to him about it, because you can deploy very close to enemy units. If you can get this off, this is an alpha strike of humongous proportions if it can get off. And if not, it's a very durable hero as far as elves are concerned to be able to take the punch back. You have to build for it. You have to build to be lower drops or have primal dice. And we don't know what the meta is going to be like for army drops in list building yet. We don't. You know, I think people are going to be going higher drops personally. I did do a practice game though, and I've seen some practice games going on where the lower drop army, because you can still choose who goes first, and that's very impactful on the battle plans we will cover. There's an argument that lower drops are good. But it's a very good spell, and there is a reason it takes a 12 to cast it. Alright? So, okay, command traits here, not battalions yet. So, if you want a specific command trait to this area of Ghur that we're in, You got Shaman of the Chilled Lands, where you just know the whole lore of Primal Frost. All of these 3 scary freaking spells. If you're a Tzeentch player and you've got a Lord of Change and you're like, hey man, I want to play with this magic right now, I think you're a prime candidate for these. Okay, if you can get like a spell portal off, and then pop out Merciless Blizzard from that, like follow me, camera guy. That is gonna be just an explosion of mortal wounds that will just mess up anybody. There's a reason there's a Zangor Shaman here, is to say Tzeentch is gonna love this. Alright, then we have Eye of the Blizzard. At the start of your hero phase, if the general's on the battlefield, roll a dice. On a 5-up, you gain a Primal Magic dice. A third of the time, it'll happen, which is reasonable. Again, if you're building around for this, it's not a given. But, because it's each time... Again, we're going to roll up here real quick. For each 4... Because both players roll a dice. For each 4-up, each player receives a Primal dice. So between you and your opponent rolling for this Primal dice, statistically speaking, one of you is going to get it. And then you each get a Primal dice. And if you're playing for Primal dice, you want as many rolls for this as possible. So taking the command trait isn't a bad idea. Some armies have better command traits built into them, and that's fine. But if you're teching into it, the technology is here for you to take. Alright? Then we have Chill to the Bone. Once per battle, if this general suffers a miscast or primal miscast, you roll a dice. On a 3-up, ignore it. I'll be honest with you. I will be honest with you here. There are times where I have had a miscast on a 2-cast wizard or a 3-cast wizard, and I'm just because I've like built into like there's a combo to give them an artifact or something to get an extra cast or whatever. Where this Chill to the Bone is absolutely fantastic. Because if you can get all your spells off and keep casting, that's great. You know, we love it here. Probably hearing PD walk in the background. He's a good dog. I don't know that I would take this over some other command traits in certain armies. Like, for me, again, I'm an order player. I think in my mind, with my Deepkin, with the Eidolon of the Sea, the caster, where we already have a couple casts, we have abilities to do so much. Maybe I finally tech into the magic of Deepkin instead of just the stabbing of Deepkin. But then we get to this one, Eater of Magic. Each time this general successfully unbinds a spell, roll a dice. On a 5-up, that caster no longer knows the spell and may not cast it again for the rest of the battle. This is the interesting thing here about, again, that idea with Tzeentch or with Slann and Seraphon. They're still very good cast. Again, all this, every time I've said Tzeentch so far in this video loves all this. Put in Seraphon, put in Slann, Starborn, or Coalesced. Where it's just, again, it's a third of the time it'll happen. But the fact that you will most likely, between Primal Dice, with Slann, the board-wide unbinds, I believe, are still in the new book. If not, you've got bonuses to do this. It's going to feel really good. You're going to get this at least once a game with how many spells get casted. But especially if everyone goes into, everyone's going to bring a wizard and all the magic factions that can bring magic. You're going to get a couple. You're probably going to get someone to not be able to cast Mystic Shield or Arcane Bolt and catch them out with Eater of Magic, let alone their one cool spell they brought on the one caster who has like the bonus to cast, and they're like, cool, yeah, this is my cool teleport kill you spell. I can't do it no more. it's gonna feel really good if you're the player stopping them, and feel really bad if you're on the receiving end of this. That's a nice deepkin hero there. Here we go. Going to the battalions. All right. Here's the thing. All right, we got 2 battalions here to go and supplement the ones in the core rulebook, right? We've got Andorian acolytes. Andorian acolytes. I'm still going back and forth on the pronunciation here. Where we have at least 2 heroes, foot heroes specifically, not unique, 10 less than 10 wounds, basically 9 and under. At the start of the hero phase, if 2 or more of these locusts in the battalion are on the battlefield, so one can't be in deep strike, one can't be in reserves, both on the table, roll a dice on a 3-up, you personally gain a primal magic dice. Again, let's go back to all the foot heroes we're bringing and how hard all those spells are. This is how you tech into it. You go, cool, you do a battle regiment in this with 2 foot heroes, and then all of a sudden you're a 3-drop. Like, okay. You throw in the 3rd hero, so when the first one dies, you still keep doing this. Like, that's great. Also, as a note, in the errata that came out for the core rules around the time this general handbook dropped, they codified Lookout Sir as the good. You can't target an enemy hero unless you're within 12 inches of them if they're standing near their units, which is like the big thing for the last general's handbook, because the rule is so good, and this allows you to play with your foot heroes and take advantage of this general's handbook's magic and the spells involved too. So that's great. And then we have the Wizard Finders of Andor, because they have to try to have something in here to balance the mechanic of the season. This season, again, is a year long. We're back to a year-long General's Handbook. We already have the Nullstone artifacts, but this is the battalion that says each time a unit in this battalion is picked to fight, you can say it'll go on a wizard hunt. If you do so, pick 1 melee profile on the unit's war scroll. Until the end of that phase, add 1 to the attack's characteristic of that weapon. But all the attacks that unit makes this phase must target an enemy wizard. Wizards cannot be included in this battalion, and here's why I love this. You know who's an enemy wizard if you're not taking them? Nagash. Teclis. The big named Stormcast dragon that's blue, the one I don't play. Karzai's brother. That jerk. Croak is a wizard. These named spellcasters that have been bugging you out through all your games and all your tournaments, all your narrative play, all that, they're generally a wizard on top of their other shenaniganry. If you get into melee with them and you have models in this battalion, all of a sudden you just went up the food chain, my friend. And you actually have a shot at putting some serious hurt on these wizards. Which is why I'm like, some people might take this battalion and this battalion. And then, you just need another troop choice, and you got your 3 battle line and you're good. Like, yeah, this fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I caught a stray though with this, because in my Stormcast army, I like using evocators. Like it's a unit of wizards. I like mine when they're riding the Draco Lions to be like a shock cavalry, but they have the wizard keyword. So this is also going to affect them. There are some Warcry warbands and such that I believe have, if not Underworld's warbands, that have wizards in them. We have a lot of use for this. So don't count it out yet, unless your local meta is Fire Slayers, Caradron Overlords, and Khorne and Iron Jaws. But especially for those armies I just named, you're gonna frickin' love this battalion. Whew. That is scary. And also the other thing is too, for wizards cannot be included in this battalion, units like my evocators that would love the extra attacks can't go in it. And it's infantry and then a monster, right? Or behemoth. Excuse me, behemoth, because it says monster there and then specifies. So, like, for my Deepkin, I could have um, my hero, either any of my heroes that support my Namarti Thralls, and then units of my Namarti Thralls who love having extra attacks when they go into hordes, but against heroes they get an extra damage, right? But now they get their extra attack, so 10 Thralls is up to 31 attacks at 2 damage to take out an enemy wizard. There's a lot of uses for this. Hearthguard Berserkers are gonna love this. Ard Boys are gonna love this. We have a lot of uses. Everything Corn is gonna love this. All right, let's get the grand strategies. We're getting long in the video. It's gonna be a long video, but follow me here. All right, grand strategies. We're gonna go control the Nexus. When the battle ends, you complete this if 2 or more friendly wizards are wholly within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield. You got battalions on the mind. And it's doable if you're bringing a lot of wizards and you don't run into someone good at killing wizards. It's doable. It is. Spellcasting Savant. Complete this if the model made to be your general has this cool locust keyword and has not been slain. Doable, but again, we say at the beginning of the game and throughout what our grand strategies are. If your opponent gets to focus down your general, it has to be a 9-wound hero or less. It's gonna be rough, buddy, but it's doable. Honestly, I could see someone like Sylvaneth taking this. Right? You put it on the Warsong Revenant, who's your general. Well, you put your general as the Warsong Revenant. They're the Locust. You take this. Because you need them to live for you to win the game anyway, right? So, why not? Slaughter of Sorcery. You love this. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if there are no wizard units on the battlefield. So if you have a core and mirror match, you both are scoring this. This is fantastic. If you're not bringing wizards, bring this. Do yourself a favor. Bring this. If you don't have a good book grand strategy that's reliable for you to get, Slaughter of Sorcery is fantastic. All right, Baron Icecape. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if all enemy units that have artifacts of power are destroyed, and no enemy units are within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield. Honestly, it's the opposite of Control the Nexus. Because realistically, you have an artifact on a hero, get one for free, right? So this is just kill all the enemy heroes that have artifacts of power, and no enemy units within 6 inches of the center of the battlefield. This is doable. Overshadow. When this battle ends, you complete this grand strategy. If all enemy battle line units from your opponent's starting army are destroyed, and there is at least one friendly battle line unit from your starting army on the battlefield. This was an older one from older General's Handbooks. I'm glad it made a comeback. This is what I'll personally be taking because, again, I've used it before in other General's Handbooks, and I like it for a lot of the armies that I play. That starting army thing is great because armies that summon in, let's say, Seraphon Starborn summoning in Skinks, or the Undead summoning in units after they've been destroyed, those don't count. Those are replacements. They don't count. This is very doable. Magic Made Manifest. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if there are 2 or more endless spells or incarnates on the battlefield that are controlled or by or bonded by friendly units. So remember, we have a thing to... Some armies have spells to capture endless spells or control an incarnate. If I remember, I think Seraphon had it in the old book. I don't know if they have it in the new one. I don't have access to the new book. And just if you're going endless spell heavy in this era of they're going to be a lot easier to cast as long as you're smart about your primal dice. Because again, if you're going to do this, you should tech into having more primal dice generation. This isn't outlandish. It's harder because you still need to roll it, but it's not outlandish. All right, then we get into battle tactics here, the real meat and potatoes of what we're really here for. Intimidate the invaders. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if there are more friendly units wholly outside your own territory than there are friendly units within your territory, because it's you're pushing out the invaders, you're coming out to fight them. I like it if you have a fast-moving army that can turn one get out of your deployment zone where your territory usually is and can get into the fight. This is doable. If not, this is a nice late game one when your army is hopefully on the other side of the board and your opponent's deployment zone anyway, and testing their home objectives. This is a doable one for anybody. Yeah, that's the thing too, because the last handbook, the last couple is like only certain armies could do certain ones. This one's just doable. Okay, reprisal. You can complete this battle tactic if an enemy unit that is destroyed a friendly general earlier in the battle is destroyed this turn. A friendly general, I'm going to say this also counts as models that are like a Marathi, where they're the general, they're treated as a general as well as your actual general you pick. And this is doable for anybody because you kill the unit that killed your general. This is doable. It relies on your general dying, but you make a positive out of a negative. 3. Endless expropriation. That's a $10 word right there. Pick one enemy unit that is controlling or bonded to an endless spell or incarnate. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if any of the following are true. The enemy unit has been destroyed. The endless spell is wild. The endless spell is controlled by or bonded by a friendly unit. The incarnate is wild. How do these things happen? Well, if the enemy wizard casts a second endless spell, the first, one of them becomes wild. So I usually think it has to be the first one stays, the second one's wild. No. So this is, if you, hold on, the spell begetting the spell lord. If you use that and pop someone's endless spell off to make it wild, or the incarnate is wild, you're good. If you have a spell that lets you capture an enemy's endless spell, you're good. You just kill the enemy 5-wound wizard like the jerk they are, you're good. This is reliant on your opponent having these things, but it is doable by everybody. You're not locked by what you bring or your list. It's, does the opponent have these things? So in theory, doable. Magical Dominance. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if a friendly wizard unit successfully casts one or more spells and none of the spells cast by any units in your army were unbound. Listen, if you can just hide one wizard outside of 30 inches from your opponent and not miscast and use a primal dice to make sure the spell goes off, this is doable. You need a friendly wizard unit, and you need to make sure none of the spells cast by any units in your army are unbound. But this is doable by most armies, because almost, again, we've named armies that either don't like bringing wizards or just don't have access to them. So, doable, not necessarily by everybody. Okay, 3-1 here. Magical Mayhem. Pick one enemy unit on the battlefield. You complete this battle tactic if that unit is destroyed by damage inflicted by a spell or abilities of an endless spell. Doable if you have spells or endless spells. And it's endless spells, not endless prayers. So the, or whatever you call the corn ones. Or the magma invocations. There you go, invocations. Um, so again, not doable by everybody. We're at 3-2 here. Bait and trap. You can complete this battle tactic if 2 or more friendly units retreated this turn, and 2 or more different friendly units made a charge move this turn. Doable by everybody. There will be times where this is going to be very doable. Like they run into your screens retreat for your other units to come in. And we've got 4-2 of doable by everybody versus you need a wizard. Led into the Maelstrom. You complete this battle tactic if 1 or more friendly heroes and 1 or more friendly battle line units each made a charge move this turn, and at least one of those units is within 3 inches of an enemy unit at the end of the turn. Long story short, don't fully kill an enemy unit that you charge into, but we have enough combat heroes. It just says heroes. They don't even have to be leaders. And you have battle line units. You need 3 to make up an army. This is completely doable by everybody again. And then finally, surround and destroy. Pick 3 different friendly units on the battlefield. You can complete this battle tactic if at the end of your turn, each of those units is wholly within 6 inches of a different battlefield edge, and 2 or more are wholly outside your territory. Alright? If you ambush as an army, like Beast of Chaos, this is an autocomplete. As long as your opponent doesn't screen out the table, and hopefully they're fighting for objectives in the middle of the table, and this is one that can be done by everybody. It's going to feel like a pinch for Mega Gargants, but you know what? If 2 of your Gargants are around a corner, you got 1 hanging in your deployment zone, this is doable by everybody. We've got most of these battle tactics are doable. We've got more than 5 are doable by everybody. Some of them are a little harder than others. Some of them you need your opponent to actually bring stuff. They're doable. You pair this with 1 or 2 book tactics from your battle tome, we're going to be fine. Okay? These aren't supposed to be all easy. These aren't supposed to be all hard. I think we have a good mix. It's going to be interesting checking which ones you're going to use. Again, you're going to want to sit on reprisal until your general dies horribly. And you want your Intimidate the Invaders probably a little later. A good first turn one is Magical Dominance. If you have wizards, Magical Mayhem is fine. Another good one that could be a first turn battle tactic if maybe you're going second is led into the Maelstrom, have a friendly hero and a battle line unit make a charge move, and at least one of them is still alive and within combat range of an enemy unit. And if you got some cool teleporting shenanigans that you can make sure of, or deep striking, surround and destroy is very, very doable. Honestly, for my Stormcast, I'm thinking of just keeping my Aether Wings around just to do that, right? Because 2 or more units have to be outside my territory. I keep 1 in my deployment zone. I run 1 up to take an objective on the side, drop my birds in the corner over here, bing, bang, boom, turn 1's done. So this is Future Rocco coming in here. This video got very long in its initial recording, which I'm sure you, dear viewer, wouldn't mind. But some other viewers on our channel come here for shorter, compact content, not the 3-hour podcast type. So we're going to do battle plans in a separate video. Hope to see you there. Bye, everybody.